Did you know that there's a lost media Vocaloid? This is SeeU, and she was the first Korean Vocaloid. And while you may not know her, I'm sure you know one of her songs, because the song Hide and Seek, sung by Lizz Robinett, was actually originally sung by SeeU, and it was in Korean. In my opinion, she had one of the best designs in Vocaloid history, as it combined both styling looks that were popular in K-pop at the time with kawaii and otaku-inspired elements. SeeU's official height is 5'2", and she was born on August 20th. Her cat ears are actually speakers, and her neckband is a CD player that is connected to the speakers. She could sing in Korean and Japanese, but there were also English phonetics recorded in her voice bank. But what made SeeU get pulled from the shelves permanently? To know this, we'd have to go back a little bit. The year was 2014, and I had never heard a single Vocaloid song before, but this interesting video came up on my feed called iFantasy, and I was immediately curious just by the thumbnail. The video dated back to 3 years prior in 2011, and when I heard the song, I was instantly addicted. I listened to that song non-stop for 2 years straight. It had all of the makings of a hit song, and I honestly didn't even know that she was a vocal synth. But I was enchanted by her mystical blonde hair and cat-like eyes. It wasn't until a few years later that I was devastated to find out that you actually can't purchase SeeU anymore. You see, when SeeU first came out, she was created by a Korean broadcasting company called SBS A&T. This is a subdivision of the larger company SBS, who among other things have their own music show, which for those of you who don't know, is where all those K-pop fan cams come from. The voice provider for SeeU was a girl named Dahee Kim, who was in a group called GLAM. GLAM was a 5-member Korean girl group who was under the same company that later created BTS. In fact, they even performed live with SeeU on the aforementioned SBS network with BTS as their backup dancers. And one of their title tracks was actually written by one of the members as well. But when coming from a company that has produced such a successful group, one would think that they'd be one of the biggest girl groups in K-pop by now, right? Wrong. The first controversy that the group got into didn't necessarily affect SeeU directly, but it still wasn't a good sign, because one of the members, Trinity, was actually exposed to be a stalker of another K-pop idol, Leeteuk, from the boy group Super Junior. Regardless of the group's status, it was still very messed up, but it didn't help at all that Super Junior was one of the biggest groups in K-pop at that time, and GLAM was rather obscure. After this, Trinity announced that she'd be going on a hiatus, so the group continued on as 4. After this, they released the song I Like That, which was my first introduction to K-pop. In fact, they even performed the song with SeeU, which is how I found out about it to begin with. They released one more song, and member Dahee even started a solo acting career. But then came the downfall. GLAM ended up disbanding in 2014 after SeeU's voice provider Dahee ended up getting arrested. She was involved in a scandal where she was blackmailing another Korean celebrity. This devastated all the employees that worked hard on SeeU, because this means that they would have to discontinue all the projects they had planned with her. You know how I mentioned that in her Korean voice bank, she also had English phonetics programmed into her as well? Well, she was supposed to have an English voice bank. After that, she was basically abandoned. There wasn't much news about the voice bank after that, until 2021 when her 10th anniversary came around. And there were still employees at SBS who were fond of her. I think SeeU as a character is just naturally charming like that. Staff wanted to continue making more projects with SeeU, but overall the company decided that it was not profitable. As honestly, SeeU didn't really even get a chance to gain too much popularity before Dahee's controversy happened. A special birthday event was planned and crowdfunded through Kickstarter. New official art of SeeU was dropped, as well as some new SeeU songs made by popular Korean Vocaloid producers. But unfortunately, she only went back on the market one more time. They announced that they had only 400 serial codes left for SeeU from her initial run. All 400 sold out within 24 hours, making SeeU permanently unavailable to purchase, being the first Vocaloid to do so after Miriam. Miriam was a Vocaloid in the Vocaloid 1 era, before the Vocaloids had anime avatars, and they actually just had humans on the box. She was based off of a singer-songwriter with the same name, and after Vocaloid 1, they just stopped making her. See, 2 years prior to this, there was actually a Chinese company that wanted to buy her and put her back on the market with new packaging. Unfortunately, it was 2020, and something happened where they could not make her. Later on in 2023, her and her spiritual successor, Ani, the second Korean Vocaloid, were purchased by another company. One thing that's interesting about Ani is that they actually never revealed who her voice provider is, which I can honestly understand since she was the first Korean Vocaloid dropped after SeeU, and fans still very much remembered the controversy. When I learned about this whole situation, it made me really sad because SeeU is my all-time favorite Vocaloid, tied with only Miku herself. Maybe it's just my nostalgia talking, but there is just something so special about SeeU specifically that I don't see in most characters anywhere. Some of the songs that were made with her were genuine art. Some of my favorite SeeU songs include I Fantasy, I Nightmare, as well as Hide and Seek. But she has about 330 songs, so I recommend checking out some of the songs that were made with her. And it saddens me that most people will probably never have access to her voice bank. And unless this new company that her and Unnie are under pull it together and realize that they should release the voice banks, she will probably remain lost media until the end of time. I honestly just wish that she could have had another voice provider in general, because then we'd still have full access to SeeU and she would have never had to stop being promoted. Our most recent update about SeeU was on November 13th, when her company Starlight Entertainment held a concert with her and Unnie. But even though Starlight Entertainment owns the rights to them and continues releasing some media with them every now and again, they are apparently not re-releasing their voice banks, which means that Unnie is also lost now too. This is extremely frustrating because I would love to see the songs that people could make with SeeU in the current landscape of both the K-pop and the Vocaloid fandoms and the internet in general. I feel like there's a lot of creative things that could be done with her, and honestly, I'd like to have her voice bank myself. I feel like SeeU had a lot of potential to be popular, especially with the new wave of digitally animated idols that have become popular, like Plave or Novice. In fact, Novice's voice is just a computer-generated mashup of all 4 members of aespa's voices. So I feel like if SeeU was still on the market, she'd be very popular by now, especially since she already had a big fan base back then. If I could pick another voice provider for SeeU, I'd probably pick a group like After School, since they had a big Japanese fan base, and I think it would have been really cool to see her perform some of After School's music, especially if her voice provider would have been in their subunit Orange Caramel, which had a very unique, quirky concept. SeeU would have prevailed at this, and it would have gone viral all over the internet. This may just be very wishful thinking, since this idol was under a much bigger company and was very popular, but I think it would have been awesome to see her voice provided by Suzy from Miss A. Not only just because Suzy seems nice and has a very recognizable voice, but also because I like the way that Suzy and SeeU sound together. And thirdly, what would have been my absolute perfect pair for SeeU is if she were voiced by a member of FX. They debuted in 2009, and the members had absolutely beautiful voices. In specific, the member Luna was considered one of the best vocalists in K-pop to this day. They were also one of the most multilingual K-pop groups, being that they were all fluent in Korean, but Victoria, Amber, and Crystal all lived in the US at one point. And of course were fluent in English. They also released songs in Japanese, and Victoria and Amber can speak Mandarin. So if SeeU's voice provider would have been someone like Victoria, not only could she have her originally planned Korean, English, and Japanese voice banks, but she could also have a Mandarin speaking voice bank. FX was also a really experimental group that was ahead of their time. Most of their music sounds like it could come out today and be a hit. So I think that just would have been the perfect group to have the first Korean Vocaloid. Let me know what you think of her in the comments below, and let me know if you want to see her voice bank re-released. See you next time!